Welcome to Does It Matter by Brainy Ballers, where we dissect the game with cutting-edge analytics to give you the upper hand. We analyze everything from hand sizes to average depth of targets to uncover hidden trends that no one else sees. Say goodbye to guesswork and hello to data-driven domination. Because here at Brainy Ballers, we don't just watch the game, we understand it. So get ready, it's podcast time.
Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're tackling a question, does a linebacker's height really matter for NFL success? And we're diving into your sources for this. It's part 33, I believe, of the Does It Matter series. And this one looked right at the fantasy football angle. So, for you listening, if you're a fantasy player, this could be pretty useful.
Absolutely. Our mission today really is to unpack how they did the research here.
Right, the methodology.
Yeah, and then pull out the key insights, especially for you, so you get the important stuff without getting totally bogged down in, endless data points.
Okay.
So the study looked at the top 50 fantasy finishers each year.
Since 2003.
Since 2003, yeah. And they compared the really top guys against the bottom 10 performers in that group.
So ranks 41 to 50.
Exactly. They said top 50 was a kind of happy medium.
Avoid the real fringe guys.
Yeah, keeps the data a bit cleaner, stops outliers skewing things too much.
Got it. Okay, let's break this down then. So first, they just looked at average heights across these different groups, right? Top 10, next group, bottom group.
Mm-hmm.
And what came out initially wasn't like a super strong pattern. More subtle.
Well, yeah, or maybe even a lack of one. What's fascinating is that in 13 of the 21 seasons they looked at, over 60% of the time, the top 10 finishers actually had the same average height, or sometimes even lower. Lower than the guys finishing, say, 31st to 50th.
Huh. That's kind of a head-scratcher, right? Because it gets the bigger is better idea.
It really does. It hinted that just looking at averages probably wasn't going to give us the full picture.
So averages weren't the answer. But this is where it gets really interesting, you said. They didn't stop there. They started, tweaking the height ranges, trying to find a specific zone.
Exactly. They asked, can we find a performance threshold if we slice the data differently?
And did they? What was that range?
They did.
Do you want to start dominating your drafts? At brainyballers.com, we've researched every metric under the sun for you to find which ones are best linked to fantasy points. You can access hundreds of metrics to sharpen your scouting abilities so you know which metrics matter and which are just noise. Stop guessing on which thresholds to look for within each metric. Big numbers can be misleading or irrelevant. Our Ultimate Athlete Blueprints reveal essential scouting metrics, their importance, and benchmarks within each metric that help predict a player's probability of being a success or bust. Elevate your scouting ability with Brainy Ballers' Ultimate Athlete Blueprints today. Click the link in the description. Now back to the show.
After a lot of testing, it turned out that linebackers between 6 foot even and 6'2", that specific range, they had an 18% higher appearance rate in the top 10 fantasy finishers compared to the guys in the bottom 10, the 41st to 50th group.
18% higher appearance rate. That sounds pretty significant.
It's a noticeable observed pattern, for sure. It's not just random noise.
Suggests there is some kind of edge for guys in that height sweet spot, at least for getting into that top tier.
It does seem that way. For you, the fantasy manager, maybe it's a little signal to, not ignore height completely.
Right, another factor to weigh. But, okay, so you have the 18% jump, feels strong.
Mm-hmm.
But then the study also looked at standard statistics, like correlation, the Pearson value.
They did, yeah. They pivoted to see if there was a direct statistical link.
And the results there were kind of surprising, given the 18% thing.
Very surprising. It's a fascinating contrast. Despite that higher appearance rate, the overall Pearson value, connecting linebacker height generally to fantasy production, was negative 0.028.
Negative 0.028.
It means statistically, across the whole data set, there's essentially no significant correlation. Height alone isn't predicting fantasy points in a linear way.
Wow. Okay, can you give some context? What's a correlation that does matter?
Something we know matters, like quarterback draft capital.
Yeah.
That had a Pearson value of negative 0.219. That shows a real statistically significant relationship. The height number just doesn't compare.
So this is pretty nuanced then. We've got this specific height range showing up more often at the top. But the overall stats say no direct correlation. How do we square that? Did looking at data over time, like by decade, help clarify anything?
It did add another layer, actually. That apparent contradiction is key. While height isn't this big standalone predictor overall,
Right.
the data did show that this specific range, the 6 foot to 6'2", seems to be gaining more importance, or at least showing up more in the most recent decade.
So it's a trend that's maybe becoming stronger lately.
Potentially, especially for those top 10 finishers. It suggests maybe the way the game is played now or the types of linebackers succeeding now fits that height profile better than maybe 15, 20 years ago.
Okay, that makes sense. So wrapping this deep dive up, the conclusion seems to be if we use broad statistical measures, there isn't a strong direct link between how tall a linebacker is and how many fantasy points they score over the whole period.
Pretty much, yeah. The overall correlation is basically negligible.
Yet we did find this interesting concentration of slightly shorter linebackers, that 6 foot to 6'2" group among the elite performers, especially lately. So it feels like height might play some subtle role, maybe influencing who hits the top tiers, but it's definitely not predictive enough on its own to be your main reason for drafting someone.
Exactly. You've hit on the core takeaway there. So what really stands out to you from all this?
Well, it makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. If that direct statistical link isn't always the whole story, what other factors, maybe things harder to quantify, are really driving success in something as complex as pro sports?
Yeah, factors you need to consider beyond just the basic measurables when you're making that next tricky fantasy pick.
Food for thought.